Hey everyone, and welcome back to my gardening vlog series. So, there's been a topic I've been wanting to get to since I very started this series, and today, finally get to it. Today we're going to be talking about fertilizing your indoor plants and transplanting, or as some call it, potting up. So as you can see, I've got some things ready here, and more importantly, sorry for the brightness, my tomatoes are doing great. Oh, come on, folks. But they need to get transplanted really bad. Like, they usually don't, sorry for the shake, they usually don't grow quite this quick. But yeah, there they are. The little seeds I showed you about almost 2.5 weeks ago. There they are now. A good time to, well, you might ask yourself, Matt, what's a good, I put the seeds in like you asked, what's a good, when is a good time to transplant, or what should I look for? Well, once the plant first emerges from the ground, each plant has two what are called, I might butcher this, cotyledons. We usually just call them seed leaves or baby leaves. They're not actually true leaves, which is what all of these are, coming out of the center of the plant. And as you can kind of see, come on, focus. As you can kind of see, it comes right out of the middle here. Those are actual leaves. This is when a lot of plants will start to look more like the actual plant. When they're all in their cotyledon stage, a lot of them tend to look the same. Once the quote-unquote true leaves come out, you have an idea of what you have, or what it is. Now, a thing about the true leaves is once the true leaves emerge, usually by that point, all the energy that was stored up in the seed for the plant, the seedling or plant to grow, has probably been used up at that point. So it's not only a good time to transplant because it's going to need more space just based on its size, it's used all its energy, so it's going to be time to talk about fertilizing. Now, for transplanting, what I like to do, going from the peat pellets to another quote-unquote organic option, is using these Jiffy peat pots. They're made from actually the same thing. And these ones are, I think, a size 4-inch or whatever. I can get you a single example here. These are more than big enough to suit your needs. Usually about anything 3 to 4 inches or so wide and deep, at least. That's usually enough. It gives you enough space for the roots to form without becoming what's called root bound. And honestly, if you buy them in the store and they come in those little cells, or it's like it's kind of like a plastic like this, but it's like a 6-pack or a 4-pack. A lot of them might be about as deep and wide as these, if not even smaller. So these are a perfect size to keep them in until you're ready to put them outside in the ground. And they're biodegradable. They're real easy to break up if you want, if you're worried about them not breaking down quick enough. You can do either way. I usually just leave them. It depends on the plant. With my tomatoes, I tend to leave them. The tomatoes bust through them after a couple weeks in the ground anyway. And they break down anyway over time. So by the end of the season, if I'm pulling my plants up, you don't even know that these were there. If a less environmentally friendly excuse me, method, even if you some reason can't find these because these are actually pretty cheap. I think it's like as the price on here, I think it's like 3, 4. It's a couple dollars for like a pack of 6. So, but if you can't find those, and they are available at Lowe's, usually Lowe's. I didn't see them at this time of year, but they could have been sold out. Could also check Home Depot, which is where I got these ones, and Ace Hardware. Neighbors Greenhouse in Hellertown. I'm going to give them a shout out. They also have that. Also have them. I'll probably be giving them some shout outs throughout the year or throughout the season. Because thankfully, despite all this stuff going on, they are still open. And the point being, you can also, even if you kind of got a little red Solo cup here, well, not the brand, but you get what I mean. You can even use something like this, although you, of course, want to put a hole in the bottom so the water can come out, or the excess water can drain out, and then just put a towel underneath. Well, I'm going to be doing that anyway. But the next thing I'm going to be going into is the actual fertilizing. Once they're at this stage, you want to make sure you're using water-soluble fertilizer. It usually says so. Oh God. Usually says so right next to, right in the front, usually right next to what it's meant for. If it does not have water-soluble on the cover, you do not want to use that for these guys. Because if it's not water soluble, it's meant to be put in the ground and broken down by the natural fungi and bacteria in the dirt. That is not in these. That is not in this. That is not in seed starting mix or potting mix either. So if you put the regular kind with your starts here, your seedlings here, it's not going to break down, or not nearly enough for them to be of any benefit. So with the water-soluble kind, I have this kind I've used for a couple years, and a new kind I'll be testing out this year. Different brand, which is actually a straight-up liquid. This is more of a powder. You want to read the directions, dilute it based on how much water you're actually using. It usually gives per gallon, but you're not going to use a gallon for this. Break it down to like a pint or something. And then, just do it like you would normally water, because these also need to get water too. But it's also a good idea to water once you pot them up or transplant them, because it helps prevent what's called transplant shock. So it's the perfect time to water them, the perfect size. That's why I'm going to be doing a lot of this today. Another thing I wanted to get into is some plants are not actually ideal for starting with the peat pellets. Don't mind that. If you could hear that. Things like squash, a lot of your big seeds like squash, pumpkin, zucchini, cucumbers. These are pretty large seeds. They don't look that big, next to my hand or anything, but if you look at them next to like a seed, the little peat pellet, you don't want to be starting them in there. Could you do it? Yes, I have. But you're going to be having to transplant, do what I'm doing right now almost immediately in like a week or less. Because that's how fast they grow, how squash just tend to grow fast. And the less you have to transplant something, the better. Especially with how young they are. When I transplant them, I don't like doing that. But this is perfectly usable size. So is this. Obviously, maybe if you could get a plastic cup bigger, like maybe something like this. But with these pots right here, I can keep them till like say early to mid-May, when I'm going to be putting these either in the ground or in a pot, a larger pot outside. So these will serve all your needs. Also, I do need to set up my other grow light because I will have to use two to space all these out because they're not going to be in as small of a space. Because I'll have, for example, a row of about 3 of these, and one light just doesn't quite cover all of them. So, let's see, did I go over? Now, as for what you actually want to fill them with, you can actually just fill them with seed starting mix. That's what I would recommend. It's probably the easiest thing to work with. You should only need a bag like that for maybe 10 to 20 plants. Well, okay, maybe if you're in a 20 plus range, you might want a bigger bag, but this should be more than enough. There's no actual... Another point with fertilizing, there's no actual nutritional value, per se. It's more just an ideal soil condition for very young seedlings. It's another reason why, when they're in this stage, you want to use water-soluble fertilizer. So I think that's all I wanted to cover for this specific video. I went over the peat pots. Got a towel over there because, these do have holes in the bottom, and you're going to want holes in the bottom. So you're probably going to, if you're doing this along with me, you do want to have something to catch the water. I have newspaper all here to set this up because I'm not going to do this on a table because the dirt's going to get everywhere. And then I just have to pick whatever the paper didn't get with a vacuum. So, seeing as I'm doing this myself at the moment, and I'm kind of recording this one-handed, I'll have to do this off-screen, but I will probably post a picture or something in the comments once everything's all finished, once the squash are put in, and once the tomatoes are transplanted. But yeah, that's what your next step should be if you started with the peat pellets. If you really wanted to, you could just start your tomatoes and really start anything in these. You could skip this step. But what I do like about this step, even though you do have to transplant at least once, it is easier for the plant to germinate. They germinate a bit quicker by at least a couple days. Whereas if I started them in there, it might take like a few days to a week longer on average. Which isn't a big deal too much, especially with squash because they grow so fast. But for tomatoes and some things, it might be harder to get them started. But it's perfectly doable. So that is all I think I have for this particular video. Thanks again for watching, and I will catch you later. Bye-bye.